All right. Welcome, everyone, to the first DeFiChain Labs Engineering community call. We want to make this a monthly thing. So every third Monday of the month, European morning, Singapore evening. So good evening to everybody that is in Asia Pacific, and good morning to everybody that is here from Europe. And there are a few key things regarding the agenda that I want to go in. So first, some administrative things. If you have a question or if you want to know something, please use the chat box or the Q&A session in the end of the call. Raise your hand first before starting to speak. I'm going to do some moderation in a bit. I'm going to pass the ball directly to the engineering team. But first, let me address a few key things. So the session is going to be recorded because, especially for Europeans, it's early morning, 10:30. If you have a day job, it's difficult to attend. We are aware of that. So we are going to provide a recording. For feedback, if you think you have a good idea on how to improve these calls, you can drop them into the chat function, or you can directly reach out to one of the members here in the call. We might think like potential feedback could be that we provide an option to raise questions ahead of time, for example, or to suggest certain discussion points. For today's agenda, so we have a bit of a status update. Prasanna is going to intro the team members, so you are aware who's in the session and who's working on what. Collaborative issues box. We might have a hard fork discussion and a preparation for the hard fork. Yeah, and in the end, the potential duration is about 45 minutes, and in the end, we might have some room for a bit of a Q&A session. Please, if you want to say something or if you have some feedback, again, raise your hand first, and then we are going to address you before you can speak. So with that said, Prasanna, can you hit us off?
Thank you, Fabio. Thanks everyone for joining in. This is the first community call. So the intent is also, so that this is usually our engineering meetings that we have. So one of those, we're just opening it up so that we can do it with everybody. If there are potential issues, then we can talk about it. And also primarily so that everybody can get an update on a periodic basis on what's actually going on. So this being the first one, we'll keep it a little bit more high level. And additionally, this is the hard fork window. So there are some key updates regarding that. Let me kickstart with that, and then we'll go in a little bit more. Before I get into that, first off, we have a couple of people from the core team here. So just, we won't have we want to make it on time, so we won't have detailed intro opportunities. So I'll just leave a quick note on some of the people who are here. Peter Bushnell, who's implemented most of the hard fork stuff, and I'm sure many of the people in the community are already aware. He's here, and then we also have Jeremy, who's been leading most of the EVM efforts, and also currently building out Ocean and leading most of the Rust side. And then we also have Niven. So Niven is kind of our star debugger. You might have seen him around in Discords and all of them. So each of the team will be sharing a little bit more on what they're working on at the moment. And then we also have Webster. So Webster usually is the one who makes sure that the Jellyfish SDK is up to date, and he works on a whole bunch of things around it. And then we also have Nagaraj, who's been leading some of the Rust efforts coming in. So these are the people from the core engineering that we have. And so for now, let me just get kick-started with the key status updates, and then I'll hand over to the team. The team will go over some of the things that they're working on, and then we'll follow through from there into the Q&A session. All right, I'm going to share my screen. Okay, is the screen visible? Fabio, can somebody give me a nod? Okay,
Yeah.
excellent.
Yeah, it's visible.
All right. Okay. So first things first. So the structure of this itself, notice board is the ones that most of you want to keep following. Layer 0 is, at the moment, we don't have to be too concerned about it. This is not something that's present at the moment, but this is something that goes beyond the regular consensus. That'll be more important going forward, but not at the moment. This current iteration is going to be focused on the network updates, so we can pretty much ignore that at the moment. Layer 1 is everything related to BTC, core protocol, and the DEX, the governance, everything that we have today. And layer 1.5 is going to be more on the slightly higher level up from tokens, which is going to be related to economy, which is going to be related to oracles, and the changes in the fees. So all of that, things that are related to that, but also requires engineering effort, is going to be 1.5. And then miscellaneous operations are some of the places where you can see some of the bot-related stuff that we're going on. So slowly want to just build this out so that everybody can just get a one-page view of everything that's going on. It's not meant to include any and everything. There are like a lot of smaller things that will be a part of it. That's intentional. Just the aim is to have the higher level goals here. Now that being said, let's jump into the network upgrade window. So this is the one where we have all the key ones that are confirmed for the coming update, which is one is going to be the D-token stock splits. So this is pretty much done. It's still yet to be merged. We expect it will get merged today or tomorrow at by latest. And then we have renaming of tokens. So this was again paused right after EVM. Now that support for that is complete, this was a prerequisite for stock splits as well. This is complete. This is already merged in, and full sync tests have been already checked out. But anyway, Peter will add more updates on that. Update pool name symbols. This is also another one that's already in. It turns out previously we had the ability to update token names, but not pool names. So which was the blocker for not changing some of the token names, like Facebook to Meta and things like that. So now after this update, that should all be possible. Then future swap limitations, and then a vault fee currently is hard-coded to 1. So now that is now settable via governance variables. And then there is a pool swap bug that was that previously affected before Grand Central, and then that's fixed now here. So if somebody was a part of that, now they'll get those swaps refunded. And then the things that are undecided. So dynamic negative interest rates is one of them. It's the PR is there. It was complete for the things that were being done manually currently. That was automated as a part of this. However, some of the more recent defibs changed some of the ways in which this operates. So that's the reason why it's been an undecided, and most likely, I think now we can actually move that out. This is not going to be a part of the current update because there's no way that we can make room for that at the moment. And then fractional splits. This will get moved to a decision point a little bit later this week. Peter will possibly cover a little bit more on that. So these are the things that are going to be a part of the network update. There are other things like ocean-related improvements, more bug fixes, all of that is part of it as well. But this is we'll cover that separately, not as part of the large network update. And then estimated targets as we are close by. We were gunning for it now for a preview node release. What the preview node release is going to do is going to start forking Changi. And then people can just check it out, sanity check on Changi just for 1 or 2 days. If everything is sane, then we'll start rolling it over to testnet. The reason for the higher level confidence is, we are testing each and every single PR, running it through full sync, and then making sure, these are smaller targeted features that everything is working through. So with that, now preview node release, we have a few smaller details that to be completed. So once that's done, we'll move into that a little bit later this week, and then right after that, testnet as well. We're hoping that we can accomplish by this week. Then mainnet upgrade is, as usual, going to follow the testnet plus 2 week window. Yes, that should be the high-level updates, and then I'll talk more about a few things on the Q&A session. At the moment, perhaps let me hand it over to Peter. Peter, do you want to pick up and then start with the layer 1 updates? Yeah, Peter,
Hello.
I don't think we can hear you.
Hi,
Yes.
Can you hear me? Yeah, sorry, it's the headphone, if it's unplugged like 0.5 millimeter. I can't, nobody can hear me. Yeah, I just need to, I'll share my screen. Let me close down Facebook. Give me a second. I'll share my screen just to go through the various PRs I've worked on for the next fork. Due to a bug, I have to share it twice. And then, yeah, you've gone over a lot of these PRs briefly, so I'll not dive too deeply into them because a lot of them are quite simple. Can you see my screen? Is that working?
Yeah, everything working.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so the first one, it's not actually merged yet. We should merge this. It's a simple one. Update pool symbol and name. There was never the ability to rename the pools. You have the ability to update pool pairs and change certain things like the commission, but not the name. We want this to be able to rename, Facebook to Meta. So pretty straightforward, not particularly exciting. I'll go to the next one. So I've got these in no particular order. At the top, again, enable renaming again of tokens on EVM. We didn't have this. With this change, we do. It's handy to have because then this puts in some groundwork for the token split on the EVM side, which will come up. Because when we split tokens, we rename the old token to have like V1 or V2, depending on how many times it's been split, and then you create the new token. So with this, we can update the token names, EVM side, if required, I guess, again, for Facebook to Meta and whatever else. So pretty straightforward. Make vault fee settable via GovVars. Yeah, the vault fee was hard coded, and of course, with the value of DFI going down, it made it cheaper and cheaper to create vaults. In fact, too cheap. And since it was a hard coded amount, we couldn't just increase this. So what this will do at the fork height is it'll just take the default fee unless we have a fee set in the governance variables. And when you close a vault, you get half the amount refunded to you. So when you create a vault in future with whatever is set in the governance variables as a fee, we also store that in the database so we can refund half of that at the end. And then we can change the vault fee dependent on the DFI price. Let's move on. Yeah, future swap limitation, that's based on DFIP 2211F, which actually was approved, I think, some time ago, so 2022 one. This will take the average liquidity in a pool, in a loan token pool, so DUSD to Meta or something like this. It will take the average liquidity over a 28-day period, and then at the start of when you have a future swap event, it will take that average liquidity and it will limit the amount that can be swapped from the loan token to DUSD or vice versa to 10% of that liquidity. So this stops people bringing huge amounts sort of in and out in one go, because the value of one might have changed drastically. The value of sort of Meta might have doubled, let's say, and then that would then introduce sort of a lot of algo DUSD unexpectedly. So this helps sort of reduce that, which is safe to have. Moving on, foundational support for fractional merge. Yeah, so we've only got support for token split and token merge for integers, like a 2-to-1 or a 1-to-2. What this will introduce is the ability to have a 5-to-2 or a 2-to-5. So a fractional. So you'll have splits of like 2.5 or negative 2.5 because that's how it's coded. There's a a test here, a Python test, and you can see a 4 to 3 merge is then sort of negative 1.33 reoccurring. What this doesn't do yet is hasn't been tested with the EVM split, which I'll talk about in a minute, but it should in theory work. Once the EVM splits merged, I can add the test and then we can get this one in as well. But this is handy to have, and I believe we can get it in this week. It's just I'm just making a small change to it today, and that should be completed. Next one, refund null pool swaps. The issue with this was that in the past, before Grand Central, if you didn't set a to address in the when you were executing a pool swap, it would just send the results to the null address, which isn't particularly useful. So this hard codes the refund of all those swaps. And what's actually added to this as well is a script. There's this generate null swaps script added in the contrib folder. You can then run this script, and then what it'll do is it'll synchronize a chain. As you synchronize, a debug log will print out all these null swaps, and then it will grep them at the end. So you can verify from the debug log the refunds that are hard coded, because there's no other way to do it. And I've put the output of that script here. Cool. And then moving on, the final one, token split on EVM, which is quite involved, because since we've added EVM, we haven't done any token splits because there's been no support for it. So what this does is it will, on the token split, all it does is it will rename the old token, and it will create a new token, and then nothing else. And people will still have those old balances. We can't just update those balances on EVM because people's tokens might be in, sort of liquidity pools or something like this, and it wouldn't necessarily work with these contracts just to sort of update them. So that's up to people to update these themselves via several means. There's the ability to create a contract calling a precompile, and then the address and the amount you send to a precompile will be split, and the new amount will be returned to your address. So it will split the tokens on your address, the one that you're essentially sending from. Also, we've updated the DeFi intrinsics contract to add a call which will use a precompile for you, so you don't then have to code your own contract. And perhaps easiest of all was to use transfer domain. So if you move out the old token that's been split to DVM, when it comes to DVM, you'll just get the new token with the correct amounts, either split or merged, and that's taken care of for you. I think the only other additions, there's one addition that's not here that I need to add, is to kill the ability to toggle DAT to non-DAT and non-DAT to DAT, because all the sort of the loan tokens in EVM, they're DAT tokens. And there's no support actually right now for converting a non-DAT to a DAT. It won't be then created on the EVM side, but we can just regard that as not supported. I don't think anybody has ever changed a non-DAT token to a DAT. It's only the foundation that can do this. I think the only person that can do this is the only person that ever did this was me by accident just after I joined the company, and it wasn't properly guarded by a foundation auth. And I remember Uzun wasn't happy. Yeah, and that's it from me. So I'm happy to hand over to Jeremy next, I think, if that's right.
Thanks, Peter. Before Jeremy can take on, if anybody is reviewing any of the PRs, the support token split would be one of the things that we'd appreciate a lot of help at. It's a pretty large PR. That's the one that's expected to go in today or tomorrow. But there's also a contract there. So the contract needs to be, it's currently a contract that the precompile just accepts any address and then does it. So I believe Peter is also working on that for the restriction of it a little bit. But contracts are usually where, most of the vulnerabilities are. So if there's anybody in the community, please go ahead and review those contracts before we get them merged. All right, thank you, Peter. So that we pretty much have covered most of the items on the Trello board. But yeah, Jeremy, why don't you take over?
Yeah, sure. Hey guys, so lately, so for the last month, I've been working with Naggers and Webster on re-implementing the Ocean directly in the node. So the idea for why we are doing this is because we've had a lot of instability since we released V4 on Ocean. And well, we have multiple reasons for this instabilities. First, we lost a bit of the ownership on this part of Jellyfish on the Ocean. So our team doesn't have all the knowledge of Jellyfish Ocean, and we don't have all the control, even in the ops part. And then we have things like versioning issues, performance issues, like Ocean now takes 3 weeks to sync. So it's really tough for us to just spin up a new node and have the additional support. So what we're doing now is we are re-implementing it in Rust directly in the node. So at the end of validation, if you have the flag, the Ocean flag set, when you'll have it, you'll have an additional indexing, which takes care of all the activating the Ocean server and the indexer. So the way we're going about it, so now nothing has been merged so far. So let me share my screen. I can share the status of it. Select window.
Yeah, so while Jeremy's pulling that up, like the Whale Indexer is pretty much, it's a JavaScript project, so there are limitations on how much we can do. Now that it's merged into the node itself, Node already sees most of these, and Node already has most of these indexes, so performance impact is pretty much negligible. And the 3 weeks is now it becomes completely negligible. It's just the node syncing time. That's about it. Yeah, Jeremy, take it away.
Exactly. So you can see my screen, right? So if you take a look at the open PRs, like I said, we haven't merged anything in yet, but it's work in progress. So if you check the tag, so the Ocean tag, if you want to review it, there's these ones which are the foundation ones. So we have a new package, this one, let me look at it briefly, which takes care of the deserialization of the DeFiChain messages that we didn't have yet. We had the support in CPP or for Ocean directly in Jellyfish, but now we need the extra support in Rust. So this is a pretty big PR, 95, but it's mostly tests, and the idea behind it is that you just need to be able to pass, serialize and deserialize all these messages in Rust, so we can use it for Ocean later on. So this is the first PR that needs to be merged in. So it adds all the custom messages like pointer oracle, pool swaps, things like this. So this is the initial PR to go in. Let me go back to the rest of the open PRs. So then what we needed as well, we needed a client, a JSON RPC client. So this is in another package that can be used in other Rust projects. So that's the cool thing about it, is if you have a Rust project, you want to do a Rust boat, or high performance boat or something like this, you can use this library now. We'll be publishing it. So there we have the clients with all the calls, like governance calls, all the support for this. It's an async client, so yeah, really performant. Yeah, so that's one of the foundation that we need for Ocean as well. We need the RocksDB foundational stuff. This is the second PR that should go in. So that's two main PRs that needs to go in before we can start merging actual Ocean work. So this just take care of sharing the DB itself, the RocksDB itself, and all the traits, the useful traits that we need, like the columns, the type columns, things like this. And then we have the actual Ocean work, which is the FFI, to be able to do the cross communication between the node and the Rust lib. Then we have all the models, the indexer itself, things like this. This one is a massive one that will need a lot of review, but hopefully we can take the time in the following weeks to do this. So yeah, we have the, let me present a bit. So we have the storage, the models. So that's all the models that we need for, that were transpiled from Jellyfish to Rust. That's all that needs to be indexed. So that's the model that needs to be indexed or that will be returned by the API. And and then we have work in progress. So Webster and Nagaraj, and mostly, well, Webster, I would say, is working mostly on the API itself and Nagaraj on the indexer. And this is still work in progress. We have a bit of work on the pool swap indexing, and all the rest is done. And then just exposing all the information through the API, through the Ocean API. So yeah, the objective we have is, so we pulled over the Jellyfish test suite. We converted it to be able to test it against the node. So we're going for 100% coverage. So once we hit 100% coverage, we also want to be able to do a bit like full sync, but Ocean full sync in a way. So every 100K block, we will dump the Jellyfish Ocean DB, and then we'll do a diff against the new implementation. Once we have both of this successful test suite running, we'll be opening it up and merging it into master. Yeah, that's the project.
All right, thanks, Jeremy. All right, let me just jump back into the board just to make sure that we've covered everything. All right, so the stock splits, future swap limits, negative interest rate, Ocean. All right, Trace, we've covered this one as well. Trace and EVM RPC improvements. I think both are Niven's territory. Niven, do you want to jump in?
Yeah. Let me share my screen. Yeah. All right. So for the Trace transaction, actually, for those people who are for developers who are interested or are dependent on this feature to be up, there's currently an active thread that I've opened directly on the repo, the Tracer tracker. So these are the basically the current state of the Tracer implementation. And it's not so trivial, and that's why it's taking a bit of time. So basically, there are a bit of groundworks that we may need to do. So that's what we have been currently doing. So the first one has actually been merged. So the first one is fixed trace transaction state. So this really lays the groundwork for the whole Tracer development. So currently, the stuff that we what this PR really fixes is when replaying certain transactions, we are really replaying or making sure that the chain state is consistent before we actually replay it. And then now that this PR is in, there's one PR, the next PR that is currently a work in progress, actually is should be able to be merged soon. Will be the Tracer service. So this is really just adding a lot of optimization on the RPC side, laying some refactoring work, as well as handling certain system TXs, system transactions that we have on the EVM side. So this PR handles all of that pipelines, and it lays the groundwork for the big PR role that will be coming in after this. So once this PR goes in, then we have a bit of optimization, like caching of certain trace transactions and stuff like that, which tracers are pretty expensive. So this is important. And then once this goes in, going back to the issue tracker, what we'll be targeting will be to then currently implement certain event listeners on our execution machine. So certain event triggers on our EVM on the virtual machine when we playing these TXs, these implementations will the fixes and the features will be up. And once this goes in, then we can then start to test the node on the full compatibility with Block Scout. So yeah, so that would be the big PR that I'm looking forward to. So once that is in, then yeah, then all the RPC ends should be pretty straightforward once the big logic pipeline is handled. Yeah, so that's really pretty much all from me.
All right, thank you, Devin. Also, a little bit more context on that. I know there are quite a lot of devs who are waiting on that. So the Trace transaction, the entire pipeline was bare minimal when it was early on implemented, and now Niven has been completely revamping that and relaying all the foundations for that. So that is the large chunk PR. But once those PR is in, all the other boxes should get ticked pretty fast. Yeah, so that's basically what we've been waiting on, and just the Ocean and the Trace part, that's going to keep going on. That's not going to be tied into the update. The rest of next 2 to 3 weeks is going to be hyper-focused on the update-related ones. So still going to be more on the full things. And so if anybody from the community, all of these PRs, I would expect that will be merged in the next 2 days. And then we'll have it on Changi, and then please, take it up, test it before we hit testnet soon. All right, that should be all the key updates. Then we'll move into the questions. Before we just open up for everybody's questions, I think there were a couple of questions. Thank you, Kugi, for putting all of them together. So what I'll do is I'll just quickly go over them, and I think some of them we've already covered it. I'll go over them and answer them first, since this is one of our first calls, and then we already have a bunch of questions, and then we'll open it up. All right, first question, Light Wallet, is there focus on improving the UI? What is to expect from here? Light Wallet is out of scope for the core team. So this is core team's primary scope is going to be the protocol, the node, the L1s, and then the L1.5, wherever we need to support. That's going to be the key, and then critical infrastructure as well. What is critical infrastructure? Ocean is currently a part of it, and I'll circle back to the next question. However, Light Wallet is not in the core team scope. There are multiple other wallet applications as well, so we want to encourage community go ahead build all of these. Ocean stability. Currently, we have frequent outages and then performance issues. So coming to Ocean, Ocean was previously the whale indexer. That was a separate project that was running alongside DeFi. Now, as Jeremy just talked about, that was one of the large themes in making it stable. We're eliminating the entire concept of Ocean itself. It was an SDK that was provided because Node APIs were not stable early on. Now the Node APIs are actually stable, but these were actually nicer APIs because they came at a much later phase. So what we decided to do is just straight away integrate it right into the node, right? So that's what Jeremy was talking about. So after this point, whenever you run DeFi, you just get Ocean automatically. It may not even be called Ocean anymore. It just becomes Node SDK. And but we expect that to get merged in the next month or so. And then once we're there, we'll slowly roll it out, A/B test it, and then before we finally sunset the current Ocean infrastructure. The performance outages last week turns out it was because of some mismatch in version of the Whale API and the Node API. At the moment, it should be fixed again. So that's Ocean stability, and then Atomic Swap test release plan, what is needed to activate. So Atomic Swap, all the code is in there, and testing is essentially what we need. We currently don't have the bandwidth for it at the moment, so we've not done any of that. And current focus is the one that we need to do the network upgrade for right now. However, that does not require any more updates. It's basically, for the community to test. Currently, it's all active on testnet, and then please test it there. And then once we get the bandwidth, we'll get there and add it on the roadmap. Block time. What is needed to make block times faster? Why do we have so many regular block times? I think this question is already asked on Twitter, and I answered briefly. Quick summary is block time constant is not the same as block time fast. Constant is a much bigger problem. because BTC itself was never meant to be a constant. When it's a large amount of time, when it's 10-minute block time, it doesn't matter. But when it's much shorter as ours, it's something where we need to completely rewrite the consensus. But anyway, I don't think that's the key context of the question. I'll move that away. For that, it's better for us to have something like WASM and then have these foundations so we can iteratively update rather than making a full consensus change. Block time faster. Now that is something that we can tweak a little bit. So there is a PR which is about more than 6 months old, I think. So when we started our experiments about a year ago on how can we push the current consensus to actually improve the block time. Why we needed these is there are multiple folds to this. One is the shorter the time span you bring, what happens is now more forks that you're going to have in the network. And then the network needs to come to consensus together. So this will end up rapidly creating lots and lots of more forks. So that's kind of where you need to, but the longer you go, then your block time is just going to be slower. So you need to pick a balance in between that. And that's currently what we do. And there is a window that we allow. And that window is what you will currently see as quick blocks coming in. So you want to have a set of blocks for a couple of times. And then very quickly, you'll have a series of blocks. It is actually because of that window. Smaller the window, then it's going to actually cost for larger the window, more forks, and then smaller the window, smaller the window, more forks, and then larger the window, then it's actually going to take more. It's going to become more unpredictable. That's essentially the problem that we'll be tweaking. But the second reason why we're not approaching that right now is because of the fact that we need to solve quite a few other things before, which is primarily the performance and then data-related issues. Because without that, then you're actually looking at exponentially performance getting worse. Because tweaking the block time is actually not that complex. PR is already there, and we just need to adapt everywhere where we rely on these numerics. And that should actually be about it. But it still cascades across the system because, for instance, the future swap limitation now will rely on a 28-day average, and then future swap itself will have a 7-day. So there are a lot of these kind of timings that it cascades onto every module that we have. But that being said, it's still relatively simple. However, the cascading effects of that are not so simple, which means, let's say, hypothetically, you do 2x. Now you have 2x the amount of data and 2x the amount of computation at the same time. But that computation is not just going to be 2x. Majority of the time of the computation is going to be stuck on locks. And now, which means there's going to be more lock contention, which means that you're probably going to see 10x worse performance, right? So it could even be much worse. So that's the reason we don't want to tackle that right now. Right now, we're working on other things which will improve the performance metrics much, much better. And there's one more that we didn't cover, which is actually snapshot-based reads. So that's LevelDB-based snapshot-based reads. Again, I don't think we have the time to cover it more, so I won't go into detail, but that will significantly improve the performance to a massive, massive degree for read-only APIs. So we are aiming to merge all of those first, and then after that is when block time, how much, to what extent can we tweak the block time is something that we're going to be looking at. But not going to be a part of this network upgrade. Next question, Quantum Bridge, are there plans to connect Quantum? Out of scope, it's not a part of the core team. Desktop wallet, again, out of scope, not a part of the core team. Could the devs look into integrating with Thorchain? That's actually, I don't think the core team needs to be associated, but I would love to chat more on if somebody's interested. And I'd love to see how we can help there. From my understanding, I think all you need to do is just run the chain separately. But let's chat about it. If somebody's interested, if somebody wants to run it, in fact, I think even possibly also use the CFP and then integrate it. That's also an option. But I'd love to be able to see what we can do to help there. Then with a fork, every 3-month fork plan, what's the release testing schedule? Can we also define a process? Feature test and Shanghai. Yeah. So this is the first time that we're doing it, and then due to some resource constraints as well, we we had to go, and we also added in a few more DFIPs alongside it. So we went in a little bit beyond the time. I think the next one, the idea is to, before the window, try and get it, at least at the very beginning of the window, get it into Changi or testnet, one of those, and then the rest is everybody comes to a decision on, okay, what goes in, what doesn't go in on by the end of that window, and we just freeze it at that point. But yeah, going forward, we'll refine this a little bit more. Status updates on open DFIPs. I think some of it was already covered. Features of limitation that's going into the current dynamic upgrade. CFP via DUSD. Now, this is something manually can be done. Current process is manual, so we can still continue to do it. However, coming to the last point of that, CFP payout on chain. Payout on chain was something that I personally was looking forward to, that we'd enable the flag. But now, because of the recent DFIB, I don't think we can enable that anymore because the chain natively cannot support it. And that's a pretty significant change to be able to add that. Because on a chain level, we can't just add it as one token, hardcode it as one token. Then we are coupling things together more and more. So then we'll have to think about it as any token that can be paid out as long as it's there in the community balance. So we'll need to be more generic about it. And so that's going to be a significant more, a lot more work. So I don't think we have planned for that yet. So unfortunately, that will also have to go on pause for the moment. And then dynamic interest rates, DEX fee. DEX fee currently is manual. We don't have the bandwidth to add any more at the moment. Dynamic interest rates, again, so interest rate PR is ready, but we can't make it in because it changes some of the things. There's a couple of more DFIPs on changing that a lot more that I very highly doubt that we'd be able to natively implement. Again, we haven't looked into it as much in detail as I would have liked, but from 20,000 view of the top, I don't think we can add this without creating a big spaghetti in the code as to where we have to link everything together, all the smaller components together. So it's pretty unlikely, but yeah, this quarter we're not looking at it. Maybe we can come back, revisit it if there's a better way. Progress on missing EVM topics, I think we have addressed it. Okay, yeah, so let's try to answer them as fast as possible. Maybe we can open it up to the community. All right. Yeah. If anybody has any questions, please raise your hands. Okay.
Okay. Kugi has raised his hand. Just in general, if somebody has a question, you can drop it either in chat or like Kugi, you can raise your hand. We will give it a few minutes. We already overextended by a minute. The initial plan was to have this for 45 minutes. We are already at 46. So yeah, Kugi, shoot.
It's. Can you hear me? Yes.
Yes.
It's not really a question, just because everybody was or no one was saying something. I just want to say thank you for the from the community to the team for doing this. I think it's great to have this in now, or to have this process started. And I think it was a great first call. So just big thank you from the community for doing this, for being open, and for getting the collaboration started. No question.
Thank you, Kugi.
Thank you, Kugi.
One of the biggest, or like, we really want to practice transparency, and the two major like foundational blocks that kind of get us there is on the one side the Trello board, so everybody has a public view of what is currently being worked on and what the process is, and the second one is more this interactive format where the community really can collaborate with the core team, and we definitely want to expand on that. But I think these two blocks, both the Trello board and the call, are building a solid foundation when it comes to transparency. Thank you for the kind words, Kugi. Okay, we might give this another 30 seconds if somebody wants to drop a question in chat or raise their hand and address the question directly. Please do that now. Otherwise, we are going to call it a day in a bit.
Just before we wrap up, I just saw the question from QT on the DUSD and CFP. Yeah, so maybe let's not push the call on it, but yeah, that's something that we will have to figure out how to incorporate. So even on a manual process, because currently it only accepts DFI. So yeah, it's going to be a challenge. Maybe let's talk about what is a faster approach if you want to enable that.
You want to talk about it now?
No, sorry. I meant let's talk about it on Discord, because I don't think there's any other quick workaround other than.
No, I think there are two options. Either we don't do it until it's implemented, or we say you can request this CFP with approximately the amount in DFI, but leave a note to say it should be paid out in DUSD. And we accept that the fee is in DFI and it's approximately the same amount, and then you do it manually. I think that's the only ways. And I think it's good enough for a workaround right now, just that everybody needs to be aware of that.
Yeah, I think let's discuss this on Discord, because then if we implement it, once we implement it, we'll have to ignore this previous history on how the payouts are happening. Because there will be no record on chain. That's what I would be a little bit worried about. Yeah,
but we also have no record on chain on the current CFPs, right? It's always a manual process. So you leave the DFI are paid out, and that's it. And now the DUSD would leave the community fund, and I think it's fine to not have the history being completely 100% traceable. But yeah, best case, no one wants DUSD from the community fund until we have it on chain.
All right.
Okay, I would say that's a wrap. We will be back in April. I don't have the date in my head. Let me just briefly look that up. So the third Monday in April is gonna be the 15th, and let's just agree, or we will push out an update if it's gonna be the 15th, but it should be the third Monday every month. Thanks everybody for tuning in. If you have any suggestions on how we can improve the format, please feel free to reach out on whatever channel you want. Yeah, thanks everybody for joining, and I guess see you next month.